In his State of the Union address, President Biden said education must be an affordable ticket for the middle class. Although the president opposes for-profit charter schools and vouchers for low to middle income Americans, school choice programs are expanding in states across the nation. We'll hear with more is Young Voices commentator Elizabeth Matthews. She's a former professor and university administrator. Elizabeth, you contend that lower income Americans, particularly those in minority communities, overwhelmingly support the idea of school choice and vouchers. So why do the president and Democrats oppose the idea?
I think that more Democrats are beginning to support the idea, and I do think that that is the way of the future. I think in communities where folks have been trying to get out of failing schools for generations now, like in my own city of Philadelphia, where there are many students on the wait lists for charter as well as private and parochial schools, our Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro did support school choice in his platform when he was running. So I do think that's the coming wave of the future, as more than, I believe, 2/3 of Democrats do now support school choice. How
about vouchers? Are they on board with that? I think there's still opposition.
I think there's opposition to different ways of doing it, but I think that tax credits, vouchers, these are all potential ways to do it. And I think some have more bipartisan support than others, for sure.
Well, with all the violence in many schools today, I mean, we even had a 6-year-old shoot a teacher here in Virginia. Let that one sink in a bit. A 6-year-old. Parents are now opting for private schools, but with household costs rising due to inflation, many find it unaffordable, Elizabeth. So what difference would vouchers make? Would it bring harm to the public educational system and cause a layoff of teachers?
So I think that one of the issues we have to kind of look at it at a broader view, vouchers would give individual families part of the funds that are spent on public education already. In many of the school districts where folks are not pleased with the product that they're receiving in many cases, vouchers would give families a portion of what we're spending per student, which is pretty high in a lot of those cities, to spend on educational options of their own choice. So whether that means supports for homeschooling, or whether that means parochial school, or whether it means part of a private school tuition that can be raised in the rest through scholarships or in some other way, it would just give families that option. And I think that, sort of the let a thousand flowers bloom approach makes a lot of sense. Teachers might not be as needed in certain spaces, but those schools have been suffering disinvestment as well as misinvestment for so long that I think there would be other opportunities for teachers. I noticed that Sarah Huckabee Sanders mentioned that her plan for education, which I haven't had a chance to look at, I believe it came out today, but it would pay teachers more as well. So I think that there's a lot of options moving forward that would help everybody.
Look, it's tough being a teacher today with all the violence and everything going on in the schools. I mean, our hat's off to them, right? At the end of this month, the U.S. Supreme Court is expected to hear arguments on the president's student loan debt forgiveness plan. So what do you expect is going to happen? What are you hearing about that? How important is that to students? Do you think the court's going to go against it?
Thank you so much. That's a great question. I can't really predict exactly. It's a really complex issue. But what I would say is that it's super important that we reform the higher ed sector, where I worked for so long. Costs have skyrocketed, and students truly cannot afford the education. And we're also in a knowledge economy now where these degrees are the prerequisite for a lot of good jobs. And I think that fixing both of those things, both getting costs down and making the sector more competitive, as well as making sure that there are options for employment that don't require college degrees, are both super important going forward.
Yeah, a lot of these trade schools may be the way to go for a lot of kids. Okay, Young Voices commentator Elizabeth Matthews. Thank you, Elizabeth, for setting us straight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on.